Hello, welcome to another edition of In Between the Pages with James Lott Jr. I'm James Lott Jr. here of JLJ Media, and we're going to go in between the pages of another book called All Our Tomorrows. I'm going to read you a piece of this is the script part of the description. I tried to put on my voice for you. I can do this. I like to do this, of course. Um, when Chase Stone's estranged father dies, leaving his multi-billion-dollar business to his children, no one is more surprised than he. Growing up outside of this high-stakes world filled with human vultures, Chase and his sister Alex are less than enthusiastic about stepping into their father's shoes. That is, until they learn of a half-brother they didn't know existed and must find to share their inheritance with. But wait, folks, Piper Maddox, which I love that name, was the elder, Mr. Stone's uber-capable assistant, abruptly fired 2 years before his death. She knows everything about Stone Enterprises and the man who built it. But Piper has no desire to work for another member of the Stone family, okay? Even one is down to earth as Chase. Desperately needing financial security, Piper agrees to return so long as kissing up to Chase and accepting unwanted advances, which were not part of her job description. A task that becomes serious hurdle for both of them. Piper and Chase scramble to find a third Stone sibling before the media does, sharing secrets along the way. Secrets that can bring them together or tear them irrevocably apart. That's the book, folks. All Our Tomorrows. It'll be out June 18th, which is coming up, folks. It's coming fast. And it's part of her new The Air series. But the person who wrote it has a very interesting story also. And we have some things in common. Besides coming to Hollywood like I did to become a star and going into nursing, folks. She's a multi-hyphenate and she's my new friend, Catherine Bybee. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
So I want to start first with the other stuff first because I was like, what? So I was an LVN.
Okay.
So I started out as a CNA. For a CMA, CNA, then I went to college, and then I became an LVN, and I did that for 11 years, and I decided I don't like sick people. So, but it's been invaluable to me, all the training and everything, of course, obviously. And then years later, in my 30s, came to Hollywood. Thought I would be an actor. Did a few things.
Okay, yeah, you and I need to go out for drinks.
We should totally. And so I did a few aside from but now I'm in the business, but as on the press side of things. So you've had just the first general question. So you've had a very varied life, haven't you?
I have. Oh my gosh. Yes. From head to toe. And I do everything I can to put it in books. Why not?
Why not? Now, when you were growing up, were you an overachiever?
No, no, not academically. Not academically. If I could get on stage and pretend I was somebody else, that was incredibly important to me because I had a very torrid childhood. It was not great at all.
I was neither. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we're great at these kind of things.
Well, that's why you go to job security eventually, right? And that's where nursing came in. I did come to California from Washington State, and as soon as I realized the casting couch was real, I'm out.
Oh, so you did have that experience then. I mean, we know it's out there. I know it's out there. I know it's out there, but you've had the experience.
I knew it's out there, and I had heard some stuff, and I had a friend of mine that went to New York. She was going to college in New York. I was going to community college and barely, I work in Denny's graveyard shift and the video game store. Remember when you used to have the stacks of VHS and the big VHS got rented, right? I was that chick behind the counter wondering why those people were walking behind the red curtain, but that's
yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Always was a problem when they were going behind the red curtain and they also had like a stack of horror films to watch for the weekend. It was, I haven't written about those folks, but I think I need to.
Yeah, you should. You should. I know those folks too. Yes.
Yeah. So my friend went to New York and she called me one day and she's like, "Oh, I made like $5,000 off Broadway last year." And I'm like, "I'm changing my major."
Yeah. I want a piece of that. Like, hello. Yes. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. No, folks, it is real. I mean, I've had a lot of friends who've gone through it. I've seen it personally kind of happen. But for me, I know when I came, I decided I didn't care for all the rejection, all the cattle. You felt like cattle. You didn't feel any kind of, you weren't special or anything. So it was a lot about the business. I was like, I don't like that side.
No, I always wanted to be famous, but I didn't want to be that.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't say that there's not people that are on that end that are amazing, but I was gonna be one of those weeds.
yeah, wasn't for me either. Now, but I'm sure, like you said, taking like I do, take all those experiences, you're able to put them into other things like books. Uh, so I'm sure you've, yeah. So you say so in this book though sounds delicious and juicy, and I can see it as a series on some streaming service. I'll say it out loud. Say it out loud.
Um,
Streaming service, come to our network. Come on.
Amazon, Hulu, I don't care whose
Yes.
ears listen.
Exactly. Listen, exactly. Um, so I mean, so how much? I mean, so when you sit down to write, when you sit down to write this, how much of the outside life kind of comes in throughout the book?
Um, quite a bit, quite a bit. I don't think I've written a book where there isn't a little bit of me inside of it, some way, shape, or form, or somebody I've met, or I love that little disclaimer. These are not about real people. I'm like, yeah, I protected all those people with different names.
Yeah.
And in different states, because there's a lot of people on this planet. But I do try to incorporate. Why reinvent the wheel? There's a lot of things that I have experienced, because when I started in nursing, I started my purgatory years in med surge, and then after 2 years of cementing the knowledge that I got out of school, or learned in school, I took it to the emergency room, where I
Oh,
wasn't going to.
ER. I was in there
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. And I didn't, but mainly because I was falling for my patients. I was falling in love with my patients, and that's not romantically, but when
Yeah, I
you
know what you
watch
mean.
somebody in med surge that you've known through their disease process, and when they go, it's heart wrenching sometimes.
It
Little
is.
did I know how much it was going to be heart wrenching in the ER, but not quite the same, because I don't know them.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm able to be a little more objective, and go into the thing, and do what I need to do, and get out. So
I want to say real quick because on that note, that's true. Because I went from ER to the floor, and I worked. Mine was geriatric nursing was my specialty.
oh gosh,
So
yeah.
talk about getting to know someone and then they
Right,
pass,
right.
or they get to know someone and they get the dementia settles in, or like all these things. That was hard for me,
It
and
was
like
it's really hard. It's really hard. And as an RN on the floor, and as you would know, you have, especially with the cuts. Now this is it's been, my gosh, 2007 was my last day on the floor or in the ER.
yeah,
So it's been a minute, but when you're the RN and you have all of these patients, and then just more and more and more and more, and next thing you know, and there was this one woman, and it's interesting because the things that go through my head, tying it into how I write the book. There was this one woman. Her first name was Solita. I will leave her last name out, HIPAA, although anyway, but her name was Solita, and she was dying of a lung issue, and I knew it. The doctor's like, nah, nah, nah. I'm like, I'm the nurse. I know. Please, whatever.
yes.
But it was so busy, and there was no family for this woman.
Oh,
Nobody. And when people die and they're on their deathbed and there's nobody to come visit them, I think of who they were before, and I write the book. So like the father in this book, his family was not going to be at his deathbed. The people that are rattling around wanting his money would have been there, but not his family. His own children wouldn't have gone, kind of thing. So anyway,
I like that.
yes, that's how that ties in. So, but when Solita passed, I had to walk out of the room for 5 seconds because I was starting to cry because I knew she was going. And when I came back in, she was gone. And the next day I put an application in for the ER. I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, no, folks, if you don't understand, I've said this before in other shows. Nurses run the floors. That's
They
what I
run the hospital. The
they
doctor's
do.
not. That isn't to say that they know what, they're not the doctors. I'm not.
No. But when I say run, you know what I mean. Like they
Yes,
every
yes, they run it. An efficient and an efficient nurse, and the whole team knows exactly when things are going to happen and what. The doctors are like, and you're like, you've spent 10 minutes with this person. I spent 8 hours or 12 hours with this person. So do what I say.
I know.
Right? To new
Right.
med students, listen to your nurse, because they can make your life miserable. I can't tell you how many times I made phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. They have a fever of 99. Do you want cultures? Why are you calling me? Well,
Yes. I've been
Maybe
there.
a little nicer tomorrow.
Yes, I've been there. I've been there. I know. But no, I just want to say the nurses do God's work. So I'm just saying that the nurses are always they usually at the pulse of what's going on in
Yep,
the floors on the
always.
floors.
Yep,
So and that's why I say I mean she's right. It's the hospital, but I'm saying the floors. Each floor,
yes,
usually the nurses know what's going on.
always.
If you want anything, you
Yep,
can't find a doctor half the time. You know we love our doctors, but there's sometimes you can't find them and things going on. And
exactly. If you want to know the truth behind a doctor, ask a nurse.
that's right.
You
That's
want him for your family if this was happening? And they go, well, actually, there's this guy. Well, yes, but and then they're sitting there circling the name of a different doctor.
right. Right.
No, I wouldn't have him.
No, I wouldn't either.
Whatever.
Okay, so but yeah, so we have that those things in common. I just love we have those things in common.
Off on a tangent.
But I love tangents. I love random. But the thing is, I saw that we had when you swear, it's like we have that in common. Actually, I noticed two things, but we now parlayed into other stuff. Which for folks out there, just saying that no matter what profession you're in or what you're doing, you can always use it in another way. That's just kind
Always. Always. I mean, otherwise, we're not growing in life, right?
of
Even if you're not a writer, if you're not an
right.
artist.
Just anything. You can use it as something else. I mean, you just never know. You're not just stuck in what you have to do. That's why I want to say that.
Often.
So why romance? Why that genre for you?
Oh, that's pretty easy. First of all, I read it as a child growing up.
Okay, well, sure. Okay,
I always start my kind of my spiel off with is I come from a family of four, and while we all came out of the same uterus, we all had different sperm donors.
I love it. I've never heard it
Right?
done that way. I love it. I'm stealing
Okay.
it. I'm
And not
stealing it.
it's
Um,
not baby daddies, it's sperm
yeah,
donors.
Smyrnos. I understand that actually very much.
Because most of them weren't baby daddies. They
Yes, yeah,
were
well, my
sperm
family too.
donors.
I understand that, girl. Cheers. I
And
understand that.
again, some of that ties into this book.
Yeah, okay.
100%.
Yeah.
But romance, I didn't have a grasp on what romance really was. I like real heterosexual, monogamous relationships. And I suppose you can just take the heterosexual out of it. It didn't really matter. But I didn't see a loving relationship in my not even in my periphery. All of my friends had or came from divorced families. I think there was probably one family that I knew growing up that are still intact today.
Yeah, same here.
So I turned to romance because there was fantasy in that, right? There was monogamy, there was love, there was completion, there was happily ever after. And then when I moved on, when I was an adult, I worked in an emergency room. If I want drama, I go to work. I don't want that.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why romance. Why not?
Yes. Well, so no, but now as you know, the different kinds of romance.
Mhm.
Which types were you reading? Are there authors you
At that,
remember? Like, what were you reading?
well, at that time, the bedroom door was being blown off in historical romance. So your Bridgerton
Oh
series.
yes.
And romance for the longest time the door was closed, right? So once the bedroom door opened, of course I was a teenage kid, I was he's cute, so certainly I wanted to get an idea, of course. Of
Yes.
course they had such a great time when they lost their virginity.
Yes, of
Anyway,
course. Yes,
I
right.
digress. um
Yes. Uh,
but I it was that, and it wasn't a little bit of Harlequin, right? There was
okay. Okay. I
little
was wondering.
pocketbook
Okay.
stuff. Usually didn't get not a lot of open doorish stuff, not
Okay.
completely at that time. And it really wasn't until I was an adult that I really started reading contemporary, and realized that there was like a much bigger window, much bigger door to open in romance.
Yeah.
With the suspense and
Yeah.
all of the things, time travel, whatever. I
Yeah.
loved.
Yeah. Look, I was because so folks at home, like I said, this is in between the pages. Um, there are different types. I mean, there's Christian romance, there's Western romance, there is the salacious, R-rated, like I said, kind of stuff.
Shades
There's
of Okobe.
my mother and grandma used to read.
Of course they do.
They would share books together. I'm like, you, my grandmother would share books. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, like you don't want la 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 la.
Exactly. But I mean, there's different types of romance. I mean, there's also, like you said, there's also the wholesome, adversity overcoming,
There is, but
big sweet.
it is. But I also think that there's a lot of misgeneralization of my genre.
Okay.
The reality, mainly because, you know, when I'm a mother of sons, they're adult sons at this point. And oh, my mother writes, this is what I heard when I was writing as younger. Now, because mom did a good job and made some money doing it, oh, you just keep doing that. You just keep making money from my inheritance, you know.
I love
Right?
it. I love it. Yes.
But there's, you know, the romantic part, the sensuality part, that part is truly, it's this much. It's the falling in love. It's the obstacles they overcome. It is suspense. It is drama. It is family dynamics. It's all of the things that create conflict enough, obviously, to keep the reader. Otherwise, hey, they meet, they did this, they live happily ever after. Be a very short book. Um, and it encompasses everything. And the reality is, in just about every single genre out there, there's this much romance. I
That's
don't care
right.
if you're reading
Right.
Stephen King. I don't care. Let's think of the B horror movies back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know that if they just had a little going on in the basement, someone's dying in the next scene.
Of course they are. Yeah. Of course they are. Yeah. Of course they are.
There's always some falling in love. I don't care what
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah. That's true.
They may not do it as well as some of romance writers, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
But no, but it's funny you say that because you're actually right. There's the actual romance part. It's actually everything leading up to it is that's usually the books. That's the
Right.
story. And
It
then
is.
you get together and it's like, okay, done.
That's just
Maybe.
to me, that's the frosting, you know, that's the cherry. That's the cherry on top of a good romance is, you know, you don't, in romance that has that isn't the salacious type.
Yeah.
They're not in bed without moving that story forward. It has to do something for the relationship. Otherwise it's just in there for titillation. And most of the time,
Okay.
right, most of the time that's not the case. No, I mean, most of the time, yes, you want to be titillated, but that's not why it's in there. It's in there because something about that scene is moving that story forward.
No, you just said something that makes me want to ask you a question. I mean, again, this is called in between the pages. When we get in there,
Good.
I'm curious. What were your thoughts about the 50 Shades books?
Okay, well, when they first came out, I'm like, you know, what is that? You know,
Yeah.
and it was the controversy over the writing,
Oh
the
yeah,
actual
yeah.
writing. And then as time went on, and this was early in my career, I, you know, I would listen and I'd hear the good and I'd hear the bad and I'd hear the good and I'd hear the bad. And I went to the reviews before I even picked up the first book because
Okay.
this was into it for a while.
Okay.
And I had met Eric. I had met E.L. James
Oh,
at a
wow.
conference.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and that's just a name drop, really. I mean, it was a
I love
picture
it. I mean, that's fine.
and,
Okay.
and a pic, you know. And then I'm like, I should probably read her book. But the
Yes.
thing that was so fascinating about that book and any book is something that a lot of writers who want to be financially successful at it should ask for. I call it the C curve,
Ooh, okay.
from 5-star to the 1-star. In the middle's kind of, and if you look at the reviews on 50 Shades of Grey and the entire thing, you loved it or you hated it, but you were passionate enough to talk about it. And that's the thing that caught fire. And the reality is, the people that were in the 1, they would sit there and they would go off about how, you know, oh, this was so bad. I need to read book 2 to see if it's still bad. Oh, I need to read book 3 to see
Oh,
if it's still
yeah.
bad. And I'm like, go girl.
Yes.
Hey.
That's what it is. God, I never thought of it that way. That's very cool. You're right. It's like you want them to 1 or 5 it.
Exactly. And a rising tide in any genre raises all ships, right? So like Bridgerton coming out, did that raise the ships of the historical romances that are out there? Of course it did. Of course it did.
What also reminded people of Sense and Sensibility or Jane Austen.
Yes.
It reminded them of
Yes.
the old stuff too. They reminded them of, oh, yeah, these books were around for 1,000 years. You're like 100 years, and they're like, oh yeah, it did.
Right.
It did do that.
And we can read that and fall into the story a lot easier sometimes than we can read a book that was written 20 years ago without cell phones.
Yeah.
Without the Thomas Guide, or now, you know, the Tom, you know, I'm old.
I actually found a Thomas Guide there. And I was like, oh my god, I remember
Right.
that.
On page 49, let me switch the page. Oh,
Yes, exactly. Oh my god, you said Thomas. Well, everybody in our cars, we all had Thomas Guide in our car.
that's
Everybody
right.
had one.
Yeah. People actually got their pizza to you within 30 minutes and they didn't have GPS.
That's right, kids. That's right. I love that. I do. No, that's very. That's why I love tradition. I get epiphanies. I like that. I never thought of it before that's it does raise the other. So if someone goes to that, like say with Twilight, those were
Yes.
all YA romance, so to speak, right? I mean, that's basically what it was.
Do you not know that that's part of the whole reason for 50 Shades? That woman, she was very smart. It was Twilight fan fiction. You can look this up. It's very
Okay,
much out there.
okay.
She waited until all those Twilights had body hair, and she wrote a fan fiction around those books. It's very publicized.
That sounds kind of familiar. Like I think I heard that somewhere. This sounds kind
Yes,
of
you can
familiar.
look it up. Yeah,
But either way, I'm like, that's smart.
super. Oh,
Oh,
she's a brilliant businesswoman on top of the fact
okay,
that
then that's what it is. Yeah, but you grow with the audience. You think about the audience. I just know that 50 Shades at home. And I read the first book. I didn't read. I read the first two books. I didn't read the second one. But my daughters they were all into it, and they were also into Twilight stuff. They were into Twilight. They read all. They were sharing the books, and they really bonded together through the stuff. And it's like, but every woman I know was reading 50 Shades. It was crazy.
it was such a phenomenon, right?
Yeah,
I think it was at Random House. I think they gave a bonus to everybody from
yeah,
the ground up, and rightfully so.
yeah.
It's just those sensations, and sometimes you can't predict it, and it isn't always about the person that has the MFA in literature. It's sometimes it's the person I can't spell my way out of a paper bag yet. I've written like 45 books. Thank God for word
I
processing.
saw because I interview authors, and some of you are successful in your genres, and I would say I would tell people at home the nicest people have been the ones who've been doing this for a while. I have met some newer authors, yeah, a little bit of tune, but the ones like you and a few others, like a Debbie McCumber, all these, but you guys are all super nice. You guys are all just like super sweet and nice and like been around for a while. You know what's going on. You're comfortable in your genre as you do it. So it's funny to me because I've been people like the Hallmark's channel type books and movies. Those are very big too right now. So what are your thoughts on those?
Well, Hallmark will purchase books that are very similar to some of the stuff that I have written, and
I would say yes, I'm sure, yes.
they take the sex out. In fact, one of my very good friends, Marina Dare, has several Hallmark films, and I remember watching the very first one with her, and we finished watching it, and she looked at me and she's like, "There's one line in the movie that was mine." Now, the premise of it was all there,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
they took all the dialogue wasn't there, like one line. Oh, and then she'd be like, "Oh, this is the part where they go upstairs and but they didn't do it." Right? So that was, interestingly enough. But yeah, again, why not? There's a lot of great writers. This is such a wonderful time to be a writer because we can open all the doors.
I
They're
agree.
not closed to us anymore. I don't care where you are. What genre.
All of Tomorrow's is a great title, and I wanted to ask as we do go between because we go between the pages. Titles are always hard sometimes, or they're easy. Sometimes some people do. I've heard they've had a title first, then
Yeah.
the story. Others had a story on title comes. So for you, how this title? 'Cause I love the title. How did it come?
The title came from inside the pages. Wasn't it didn't come to me until I was writing the book, and actually we had to play with the title a little bit because you don't want to put out a book when there's another book out with the same title. You have
Oh
to play
yeah,
with
well yeah. Yeah.
I have written them the other way where I've known the title before I've started the book
Okay.
for sure. And I love that because then the plot is like already in my head. And since I am not a plotter, I'm a pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm like on chapter. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that out loud. My editor will be saying, I'm really early in the book, Maria. Anyway, I'm early in the
It's,
book and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? It'll all come. I know it will.
Maria's gonna be okay. She's gonna fly. She's fine. It's all in the
Knows
finish.
that. It's due in August and I'm leaving for a month. So I'll be fine.
Oh,
Okay.
fine. Yes.
But all our tomorrows came from the title itself did come from with inside the pages because both my hero and my heroine, Chase and Piper, they have their insecurities about family. They have their push and pull of that, and the two of them need to have a promise of all of my tomorrows, both of them. And so yeah, so that's how that kind of in
Yeah.
a nutshell.
Thing about this story, which is great, is that it gives these two who at first is like, Papa doesn't want to be there. She don't want to be bothered.
Mm-mm.
But you have a common goal. When you have
Right,
it's almost like the enemy of my enemy is your friend kind of thing. Not
right,
saying this third person is the enemy, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like, we know this third person is unknown,
right,
this sibling's unknown.
right,
Okay, we'll work together. I
right.
like that premise also. That must be a lot of fun to write too, just get that kind of like,
Oh yeah, I mean, I love it when there's, we're both haters on that one, and they did. They do for sure. He's not a fan of his father's, even though he's gone. She still doesn't change the facts, and so
Yeah,
she didn't like them either. But she worked for him, and she knows more than the guy coming in. So
yeah.
he needs her, and eventually she needs him.
That's what I like about that because people forget, I had a good assistant for 11 years, Mark. Hi, Mark. He went on to other things and it was really good. We left on good terms, but he went on to something on his own.
Yeah,
But I was like, I'll never find anybody like you. I mean, maybe one day I will, but so far I haven't. I've had some good assistants since kind of, but like he knew my
everything.
moods, he
Oh,
knew my crazy family, he
yep.
knew my business. And so I like when you say about that, this Piper, I love that name, Piper Maddox. I love that name. That it's like she had the ins and outs. I mean, she was like
She knows
with
everything.
this guy,
She
she
ran
knows all the
the
stuff.
office. She run the office. She would go in and she knew more than about what was going across the business of his desk than he did. It's the nurse versus the doctor,
There you go. There you
right?
go.
It's
Yes.
that. And so consequently, she takes those skills. But the beauty of that is she didn't have to kiss up to the second Mr. Stone, right? The first one she had to keep her job. This guy, she's like, if I'm negotiating this right now, this is not what I'm going to do. And he's very real with her because they're both very grounded because they did have at least one parent that was grounded and kept them on this. Most of the time when you think of a billionaire romance, you're thinking of people that are so outside of the norm of anybody. You can't relate to them. And if there's one thing that I try desperately hard, regardless of whether it's a billionaire romance or the blue collar worker that can't scrape together two nickels to have his beer at the end of the day, I try to make it so relatable that whether you have money or don't have money, whether you're rich or you're poor, you can read it and go, yeah, that yeah, I get that. Oh, I get that, because everybody's motivation in life is different, right? And that's the beautiful thing about writing books is you get to, what is my motivation? What do I have to do here?
Mhm.
And Piper, she's played with the rich man's money his whole life. Chase has never really had the money, so she shows him.
Right.
Oh,
No,
by the way,
right.
you have a plane. You don't have to sit in the cheap seats. Oh,
Right.
by
No,
the way,
right.
let me
Right.
call the plane. What? Oh, rent a car. No, I will send a car. And that's fun. We need that right now, I
We do.
think.
We
We
do.
can't afford our groceries these days, so we need that.
And I was telling people, I said, here in Los Angeles, at one point, there was gas with $7 a gallon at one
Yep.
point, certain parts of LA. I saw it with my own eyes. I took pictures like, folks, just because you don't believe me, here's a picture
Right.
of gas that's like 7.69 a gallon.
Right. And that's not even on the 15 freeway going to Vegas.
There you go. Right.
Yeah, it's no joke. We
That
definitely
that is, that and eggs, girl. Why are eggs $10 a dozen?
I
Not
don't know.
medium sized eggs, girl. Not even large.
I don't know. I was a chicken mom, so I had chickens with my kids growing up.
You
I don't
know,
know.
it's crazy. It's like they went up and say, that was gas and eggs. There were two things that went up for but also like those two too is because the person who runs the office
Mhm.
has to know more of everything that's going on, which is almost like they're another family member, so to speak,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
without the baggage of blood relation,
Right.
but
Right.
transaction.
It's like when you're playing a game of Clue. Who knows everything? Oh, the butler, the
Yeah.
maid,
Right.
the people that are in the background that you are unassuming and you don't think their ears are open, but they are open. They
Mhm.
are always open.
Now, the question I want to ask you though is the unknown sibling, the sibling, whatever.
Yes.
Did you have to have an idea of who that person was in general first before as you were writing, or did it come out of the story as you were writing?
It does come out of the story. I had a little glimpse of him. I
Okay,
knew where he was going to be in life in terms of as it was, but like I said, I'm a pantser. Sometimes
got it.
I'm sitting there in the last three quarters of my book going, I don't know who did it. I have no idea who did it.
Oh, I
Let me
love
follow
it.
this thread. Maybe it's that guy. No, and the motivation isn't good enough. Like, so yes, his character evolved. And yes, again, I knew I wanted to have a missing brother. Nobody could find him. Why can't we find him?
Right.
Why is there no information? Where's the mom? All those types of things. How do you lose somebody? Oh, well, they get lost oftentimes in the system. And this book really is, and even the next book, which is already written and comes out.
Oh, yay. Yeah.
I'm actually writing book 3 on this series right now.
Okay, good. Okay.
Right, so to put you an idea of where I am in the picture.
Um,
But I really wanted to tie the two very important images to this, and that is where the brother is, what his life was, and what they discover as they find him, Chase and Piper, and Piper's own problem in the book, right? And it's pretty, you're gonna find it out pretty quickly. So I don't feel like I'm a spoiler alert necessarily, but an unexpected pregnancy and her grappling with what to do, even as an adult. This is controversial. I don't care.
right,
I'm old
right.
enough to where I don't care. I
Exactly,
have a
good
kid.
girl.
And again, if you read farther enough in the back of the book, the back matter, you will hear a couple of stories as to how I came to
Okay.
my thoughts and feelings and where I'm at. Take it or leave it. You don't have to, whatever. But it was those two things coming together, and that common, okay, what am I going to do? What did this woman do? And just it's a mind game for people who have a child that maybe they weren't expecting and don't know if they can afford and want and all the things. And it's a hard decision. And I show you two sides of it, because I show you the mother that has had the son that is disappeared and the mother's disappeared, and I show you Piper's side to it. So I show you the end result and the beginning result in one book.
I like that. I do. Um, how do you know when to end the book? A book. That's always hard because again, title is one thing. Then you got ending a book where you go, we're gonna stop it here. Because you can write a 1,000-page book if you want
Yeah,
to, or a 300-page book. I mean, it depends, right? Of course. So
right.
it's like, well, yeah, how do you know?
I usually look at where I'm at with my page count. And if I'm at 65, 70,000 words, I figure out I need to start winding it down, and it will still take me 20 to 30,000 words to get.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there's that. But in this particular series, as opposed to many of my series, now each book can be read as a standalone, but there's a few little dangling things that are that you have to read the next book to figure out, and the third book to figure out, because
I like that.
yeah, there's my
Yes. Exactly. I love it. I love it. I know I love it. I do. I love it. That's so
and because I couldn't put all of the things in one book. As it is, this is one of the largest books I've ever written. And first in series tends to be that way for me, but this is one of the largest, and I could not tie up neatly every little thing, and nor did I want to.
yeah.
Nor did I want to.
I love it. The book is called All Our Tomorrows, out June 18th. Make sure you go get it. Online in stores, wherever you get books. Just let me this week. Come on, folks. I'm sure it's gonna be available Kindle, probably. What
Oh
about
yeah.
Audible? Are we doing that? Are we doing that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Audible. Yes.
All the above. All of the above.
All the above. Check.
Catherine, you have to come back on the show when the next book comes out.
Absolutely. I'll tell you all about.
Yes, yeah, and I love it. I do. I love it. Catherine Bybee, my friends. Make sure you check her out also. And usually on Amazon, if you're like, not all of my friends are Amazon people. On Amazon, is usually an artist page, author page, but you like the page and see all of her materials that she's put out. Support her, support writers. Right now, books aren't going nowhere. That's why I do this podcast. It's very my popular podcast. I'm doing it for about 5, 6 years now. Books aren't going anywhere, folks. People are reading more than ever, and I love it. I do. I love it. And so check out people. If you've never heard of her, then now you have. So
Now
you
you
gotta
have.
check her out.
No excuse.
No
If you have
excuse.
Kindle Unlimited, you really don't have any excuse, because you can read them for free.
Right, you mean for free. Right. I know there's a whole thing out there, folks. So, and most of you guys know that already, but the ones who don't, there's options. But go ahead and read her books. I'm James Lott Jr., and I'm also on Amazon too. I got books out also. So you can check out my books on Amazon. I'm actually have a new book coming out soon called The Man at the End of the Street Part 2.
All
I'll be
right.
I'm finishing up that book, so I'll be coming out soon. But
Awesome.
support writers, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.